and good afternoon, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is the Coach's Corner, and of course, I am here with Coach Bono. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Bo. How are you today?
Doing good. Favorite part of a Wednesday. And we got a great guest today.
Yeah, we do.
Let us know about your guy.
Do. Yep. Well, last year, I got a chance to go visit a friend of mine over in Germany who was coaching in the GFL, and a guy by the name of Paul Alexander, and got to hang out for about a week with him and his staff. And our guest today is coming to us all the way from Germany, the defensive coordinator for the Dresden Monarchs, Martin Schmidt. And I've had the opportunity to watch and work with a lot of great coaches over the course of my career. And, so I think I know what I'm looking at. This guy really jumped out to me. First of all, he's a German national. He's got an incredible backstory in terms of how he got involved with the game. I don't want to spoil any of that. I want to give him opportunity to talk about it. But, coaching is a teaching profession. You have to be able to educate and inspire. This guy clearly comes from a teaching background. I was really, really impressed with not just his knowledge, but how he interacted with his players, how he ran his meetings, how thorough he was, answering questions, and just his ability to present and really break everything down and make it simple and easy to understand for the players. So this guy's just really, in my mind, a shining star. I think, he could be doing a lot of things. I know he's enjoying where he's at right now, but it's awesome to be able to, with the way our world has changed, to be able to reconnect with him and visit with him and have him as a guest on our show. So the defensive coordinator for the Dresden Monarchs, Martin Schmidt.
All right. How's it going, Martin? How you doing today?
Now I feel really, really good. You know how to make somebody feel really special. Thank you for having me. Hello, all the way from Germany, where we are almost deep in the middle of the night. Just got home from practice, and really looking forward to the next hour here.
Yep,
absolutely.
Where are we at in the season, Martin? It's winding down. We're making a playoff push. Well, let's start with that. Like, what's going on with the Monarchs?
Exactly. So we are currently in the second place, and this also is then the second seed. Having played 9 games now, 8-1. We only lost 1 game so far. And then if we win 1 more game of the remaining 3, we are locked in as a 2 seed. But obviously, we're trying to keep something going here, being on a roll and everything. And then we'll have a away game on Saturday. Then next week we'll be back in our real stadium. We had a kind of a rebuilding process with that, so we're all super excited to be back at our real home field. And then come September, middle of September is when the season starts, or the tournament starts for us in Germany, and then we'll try to make a run for it and hopefully advance to the German Bowl.
For the people out there that don't know, how many teams are in the, a couple weeks back we had the head coach from the Milano Seamen of the European League, the ELF. How many teams competing in the GFL that you guys are in, the German Football League?
So in Germany, the whole system of how teams and football is regulated and competed will play with cities, and there's basically, you have a lot of different leagues, and GFL being the highest ranked league and the number 1 league. We have 16 teams, and then when you go down, you have a GFL 2 with another 16 teams, and then you have all kinds of regional leagues, and it goes down to about 8th or 9th league. So overall, I'd say we have about, give or take, 500 some teams, or 200, 300, 500 some teams. It always kind of fluctuates in terms of, there's a new team forming in this city and that city, and then somebody else has another idea and is trying to start a new team here. But in our league, in the GFL, we have 16 teams, and I think about 7 or 8 are competing. as it usually is.
How many teams? How many teams make the playoffs?
8. So we got 2 divisions. So you have a North and a South division, both of 8 teams, and then the first 4 teams always advance. And then it goes into like a bracket situation where the first of the North plays against the fourth of the South and the second and so forth. And then it doesn't go after seeding, but you have 2 separate brackets. So you kind of already know, okay, if you're the second team in the North, which we would most likely end up being, we already know, okay, this is our quarterfinals, this is our semifinals, and then these are the 1 or 2 teams that we'll see in the German Bowl. That's
awesome. People don't realize. I didn't realize when I went over there how the structure of the organizations themselves, how they're put together. It's really, really impressive. I'm going to take a guess that with the Monarchs, you probably have it with, because they have their flag football, they have co-ed flag, they've got their cheer teams, and then they've got I think the under 17 or under, what's the U team? Is it under 16?
19, I think, is what it said on the website.
Yeah, the U19 teams and then the GFL teams. So probably maybe 400 or more than that.
Yeah, we actually cracked 1,000, I think, last year.
That's
everything.
That's
the bracket I thought was really interesting was the women's bracket that just said 16 and up. And I'm just thinking that these 16-year-olds are getting hammered.
I mean, football is still a growing sport. I mean, make no mistakes, we're trying to be as professional as we can, and we're doing everything. And I think with us, with the structure we have, our GM Jörg and our offense coordinator Robert, they've been doing this for 30 years. So we actually we realized something the other day when we play in the big stadium next week again. This will be the 100th time that the Monarchs have a home game at that very stadium. Wow. And our GM and our offense coordinator and some of the other coaches and guys who are involved, they have been to every of those 99 games. So it's kind of like a family or family business almost, but it's just growing. And you're right, we have the GFL team, we have our second men's team, we have the U19, the U17, the U15 flags. Cheerleader is huge. I mean, I think they stopped accepting new applicants at some point because we just didn't have enough coaches at some point. Yeah. So Dresden can be a football city just in terms of the passion and the energy and the loyalty that the fans bring. So it is. I think we are a pretty good example how things can be done.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great organization. I was very impressed, and it was cool. They had like their, I don't know if it was, I was there towards the end of the week because it was like it was springtime, early spring, but it was they were really in preseason camp is the timetable, and they had just gotten they had like their booster club or something like that. So you got, they roll out about 20 different varieties of beer, and it was just a really cool event. There are a lot of young kids that, trying to get autographs on a smaller scale, but not a lot unlike what you would, see when you visit an NFL camp. It was really cool. I really thoroughly enjoyed my time that I spent there with those guys. So I really want to get kind of your background. I know a little bit about it, but how did this start for you? How did what drew you to the game? And give us we got plenty of time. Give us your background in the sport.
I remember before I start. I remember when you were there, and then there was also Coach Paul and Coach Cameron was also there for that week. You remember that? And I'll never forget the Thursday night practice where you were working with the kickers and everybody, and it was raining. Not a little bit, it was raining hard. And I remember I was just standing there kind of looking at the players and then the coaches and everything. And I'm thinking, like, hold on. So we got Paul, who's been in the league for 30-plus years. Yeah. We got Coach Cam, who's been a head coach in the league. We got you, who's been special teams coordinator, Super Bowl coach, and all that. And these guys have nothing better to do on a rainy Thursday night in the spring to be on our field and coach, and that's a memory that will always be in my head. I think we had I don't know, we yelled something at each other about coaching, about I don't remember exactly what we said, but it was like so surreal. That was a pretty cool moment. And then, lucky enough, on the Saturday with the booster and the beer, there was sun. So
yeah, it was a nice day. It's a one day.
I always remembered it. And then thinking back, I mean, we're going back to 1997 almost, right? So that's almost 30 years. We're getting old. So I gotta be honest, like the true reason how I got to football, it was pretty much because of Married with Children. They had this show also in Germany, and it was kind of like the show that me and my dad kind of would watch in the evening after dinner or while dinner. And we always kind of joke about the whole 4 touchdowns in one game story with Al Bundy, right? We did not know what that meant at all. Like, it was like, oh, you had 4 touchdowns in a game. And we kind of joke, like, we had no idea about football because football was not present at all. Like, there's nothing on TV or anything else. And my mom was working with a friend who we're still in touch with, actually, and she was from Seattle. Was an exchange student in Germany, kind of stayed, found her husband, all that stuff, right? And she kind of noticed us talking about the touchdowns and all that stuff, and she goes, "You ever want to really watch a game? You know, ever want to see how this actually goes?" And we're kind of like, "Yeah, but we don't know where." And then right around the corner, I'm from Düsseldorf. There was the old NFL Europe, which was from 1995 to like 2007, the local team was about 50 minutes away from our house, was Rhine Fire. And so we went, 1998, we went for our first game against the Scottish Claymores at that time. I have no idea. I know I did not understand one thing. I was just too fast, too much, too everything. And we went to 2 games that year. And I think in 1999, we already had season tickets. And we kind of started learning a little bit more, started taping, you know. There was one football program Monday night at 11:30 for like half an hour. They would kind of sum up the football games from the NFL. So we kind of started taping this. And then I said, okay, I kind of want to do that myself. And then I started playing flag football because back then in Germany, you weren't allowed to play tackle football before a certain age. I think it was 15 or something. So I started playing flag football, kind of went through this, then went to had an exchange year in Ohio, where I was in Minerva, little town about 20, 30 minutes south of Canton. And then that kind of, you know, I kind of grew to love the game more and more and more. Got away from it when I came back.
You played high school football in the United States?
I tried. So I remember the first time I went to the football coach, I was like, so I want to play football. And he's like, you mean soccer? I'm like, no, I mean football. And then, yeah, I tried. I mean, it's a different speed. It's just, and we were NBC, so not like, we were a school of 700 people. So I don't know what A we would have been back then, 3A, 2 and 3. I don't know.
That would have probably been like a 2A.
Yeah. So and we were 5-5, like I said. So we weren't like the top, and but it was already like, I remember first time seeing sophomore high school football players. I was like, okay, that's completely different from what we have in Germany. It's, and we can get into this later about, you know, how the game is being treated and how people live or how people breathe football differently. But that was kind of my culture shock when I was like, okay, these dudes are different. Met a guy, sophomore, 14 years old, built, and he's like, oh, by the way, I also can do a backflip, and he just does a backflip. And I was like, okay, cool. I can't. I'll be sitting here watching and cheering. So I tried high school football, but I mean, wasn't my glory days. They came later. And then I kind of went back from football. So I came back, finished my studies, kind of went back a little bit from football, personal reasons here and there. And then, but I was never really gone. I was always really interested in the game and was watching it. And then when I moved to Dresden for my studies, I said, all right, I'm going to start this again. And then in 2009, I started back with the Monarchs. And then first I was only playing, then I started coaching the juniors the very next year, so the U19 teams, and then played more and more. And in 2016, I got injured, and then that kind of all she wrote. And then went more into coaching, and that's pretty much the story behind me. Because of Ed O'Neill talking about 4 touchdowns, I'm sitting here 33 years later. So shout out.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I love that Married with Children spurred that. That is hilarious.
100%. If we hadn't watched that show, I would never be there, because there is no, and it gets better. You know, there's a little bit more presence because of social media, of course, in Germany, but there is not a network or a cable station where it's like, okay, you can just watch football. You know, they kind of started a little bit to kind of flow with the whole hype thing, and, you know, to already use this, but the majority of German people are still kind of just into soccer, and that's pretty much what they like. And football being as complex as it is, it takes a little while for some of these to kind of let down their guard, okay? Because all you ever hear is, oh, they just kind of stand around. And I'm like, all right, but in soccer, they also stand around, but the time is running, so it's the difference.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I've heard that there is a lot. So I'm a Seahawk fan. I've heard there is actually a lot of Seahawk fans in Germany in general.
I would say yes, yeah. So of course you have a bunch of Patriots fans, since sure. You know it's a success story, which I must admit. Well, I kind of took a stab at you in the pre-meeting. You know, I was cheering for the other side in that infamous
that's fair.
Second and goal situation. So I kind of became a Patriot fan because of my first coach. Back when I started playing football, and I remember I ordered off of eBay back then a Drew Bledsoe shirt, like a jersey, and I got that, and I remember to this day it was Thursday, so I got the jersey, and I'm like, oh cool, I got the Bledsoe jersey. I kid you not, that Sunday was the game against the Jets, and Brady comes in, and I'm thinking, great, I have Bledsoe jersey now. What am I doing with this? Who's that guy? And yeah, I mean, I do have a Brady jersey now as well.
I was going to say, if you were saying you're the bad luck, I wanted you to order a Brady jersey.
No. I got my Brady jersey, but it was a while later, and no, I hope I did not do anything there. But with the Seahawks, I think that was really the time when football started growing more in Germany, and they were successful. It looked good. You know, you had the players who were outspoken, and I think that kind of drew attention. And I think Pete Carroll also was kind of a coach that everybody was looking up to. And I don't know if they had also been to London 1 or 2 times, so there's a little bit more exposure.
That's what I would say. So I only had the opportunity to coach in one of those games in London was when I was with the Lions and we played the Falcons there. But the thing that struck me that I remember was looking into the stands, and you really saw like every, you know, all 32 teams. There were jerseys. You get, you know, when you go to one of those games, you get the NFL fan that happens to be European or live in Europe, and not necessarily, you know, it's not just Lion fans or just Falcon fans. It's NFL fans, and it's pretty cool.
I mean, it makes sense.
They cheer louder for the extra points and the field goals than they do anything else.
That's a soccer background.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense that
we were warming up, and Prater like kicked like a Prater hits like a 65-yarder and it hit the crossbar and went in, and the whole place like erupted. It was like unbelievable. It was a pregame warm-up.
Yeah. They look for the entertainment. I believe those games, they are huge. They're just big events.
Mhm.
It's kind of the Super Bowl for the European guys.
Yeah.
So it's the one game that they experience. So I would be curious to see how regular games, how the attendance would change, because I'm sure it would.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, at this point, London ends up with at least 4 a year, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they've been packed out. But yeah, I mean, if they had a full 8-game schedule, who knows?
Didn't we have one in Germany last year too?
Yeah,
yeah.
the Seahawks.
The Seahawks played there. Yeah.
I think last year it was Frankfurt, and this year next year it's Munich again.
Okay.
They kind of changed this. So I don't know that the run on those tickets was crazy. I think it was like over 1 million requests or something. A friend of mine sent me maybe I can find that picture, because he also tried to get there, and he had a number on the list. I'll see if I can find that. So it's kind of like, okay, you're probably not going to get it. One of those things. But I think I like how the game is trying to evolve or just get bigger in Germany or in Europe. I don't know how much having more NFL games in Europe will benefit, though. I think the more it happens over here, the less likely you find the event crowd, and then kind of the energy might go down, oversaturation and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anything to make the sport grow, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it does seem like the NFL wants to have a division over there. And, will you end up with less?
Or a team. I think a team or maybe 2 teams, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, you got to figure out the logistics of it, right? Travel wise.
Right. Sure.
But, because if there's only 2, then there's a lot of travel going to happen.
Sure.
But I mean, that being said, it would be interesting, and they may end up with less per game, but definitely significantly more over the course of a season.
Mm-hmm.
Would this change the NFL to the IFL?
I don't know.
It's international. Change your name.
I think it would still be the NFL because
I don't think they're ever changing.
The ring state world champ.
the branding too.
I will quote Noah Lyles, world champion of what? No, I think in football there's no debate. I mean, there's nothing really. I know that the U19 championship, world championship, there was a little bit of upset when it comes to USA. I think they lost to Canada or Austria, I think, even in the third game place or something like that. But I mean, we will see in 4 years. I don't even think there's going to be any question who's going to win the whole flag thing in the Olympics.
Oh, you think it's going to be Germany?
I would not put my money on that. I like all the guys that play for that team. I know a couple, but I'm just picturing the situation of who you're going to face up that we maybe not even know yet, and I'm like,
right.
What are you going to do? Like that's the biggest difference, I think, when in terms of athleticism. I remember when we played against the Team USA in the World Games in 2017. So I was assistant to the offensive coordinator, pretty much, or assistant to everybody then. And the Team USA, it was kind of like a overnight thing, and they just kind of called, okay, so who's in Europe, who has an American passport, who can play? And then they put together this team, and like 35 people maybe. And we barely beat them 14-13. And the sheer athleticism and intensity that is displayed by American football players who went to the high school and college background is is just different. So it's something that we cannot comprehend until we see it. And we also see it with the guys that we bring over, all the Americans. Obviously, they are the best players that we have because that's where we bring them in. But just body control, understanding, physicality, not even caring about your own health at times. And I'm like, okay, looking at my defense this year, I'm so happy. I have a bunch of guys where I'm sitting, I'm standing, I'm actually in awe sometimes. I'm thinking like, you really don't care about your own well-being. Like, what are you doing? They just turn their head off and go and hunt, and that's something that I think when you only practice 2 times a week for a U19 club in Germany or 3 times, and then you cannot get to that level. And that's as long as football has the standing it has right now. That's not going to change, and then the Americans will be the world champions of football. It's just we always see it, when we kind of have the GFL. We start in May or June, and we kind of see, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. It looks good. We look like football. Then college season starts, and you kind of think, ooh, these guys are fast. And NFL starts, and you kind of, okay, good. We're all still ways away, but that's okay. I mean.
Martin, we had Coach Ward from the Seaman on a couple of weeks ago, and he gave us an outline of the roster, how the roster makeup is in the IFL. How does that compare to the GFL? Like how many Americans and Europeans are you allowed to have on the roster? How does that work?
A little different. We have 6 American slots that we can have on the game report. So we always have to lift our 50-man roster. We can have 6 Americans, and we can have 2 Americans on the field at the same time. And then we have the rule.
You can, you cannot. You can.
You can. I always have 2. So we had games where you only had like 1 or 0 because of injury or something, but we're trying to get your 2 A spots on the field. And then we have a lot of Europeans. We don't limit our European guys. I find it interesting how the ELF is going to defend all this, because they're in the EU. You can work all over the EU. That's why it's the EU, and that's why it's the called Schengen pact, where you can travel from France to Germany and work there. And just because you're from France, you cannot have a disadvantage. So I don't know how they manage that. So we have European guys, and we also have players who are from America, but maybe they have a European background, and they would be dual citizens then. They don't count as American.
Right. So we were told that, like in the ELF, if you started, even if you had a European passport, but if you started playing football in the USA, you counted as American. Is that the same as in the GFL?
No, we have no. And
the reason I'm asking is I've got a player for you in another year.
Very good. I'm all ears. Yeah, what position?
Probably a defensive end.
Love it.
Pass rusher. I mean, he's playing in the Big 12 right now. He may have a shot at the NFL outside shot, and he's got a European passport. I don't want to say anymore. I was
going to say, please stop talking now. So we got to keep this covered up, please. We'll talk. So no, I mean.
Well, we're thick. We're brothers. He's coming to you, my man.
Love to hear it.
If I have anything to do with it, I'm sending him your way.
Oh, 100%. I try not to speak ill of the league, the other league. There is some certain. We do have an opinion on the whole situation, obviously, since it kind of was started from guys who are from Germany, who worked in the GFL for a long time, who said they were going to kind of raise the standard in the GFL, and then they started their league. But we don't have these extra designations. And I believe, looking at the ELF, I don't know how long they can hold this rule, or they can maintain this rule, because I don't know how legal it is. And we all of our stuff is based on working laws and just how the EU works. So we don't have a commissioner who just kind of makes up rules to keep the league to whatever. And that's good because we can really bring in the best talent that we can find. But also, when there's no limitations, some teams that have more money, they can just load up more. So, and we're fortunate enough that we are stable enough to always have enough people to compete. But I do understand that there's also people out there who kind of say, okay, we don't have money to bring in 10, 12, 14 guys, and we have to live with the local kids. And they have to perform, and then obviously they work, and sometimes they don't make it to a practice. So it's a whole different world when it comes to dealing with the different characters there. So, having said all that, I'm really happy about how we're doing it. I think we're doing it the right way, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I know they're kind of getting away from we had a rule that if you didn't play college, but were an American, you wouldn't have an A. It's kind of the A label, but they got rid of that rule. So now it's if you're an American and you don't have a dual passport, you carry an A designation in it. That's it.
That was probably the thing that I thought was the weirdest element of the ELF was the where you started is where you had to report from. So if you were European and you started your career in the U.S., somehow you were a U.S. transfer, and that just seemed odd.
Yeah, like you would be considered an American, Martin.
No, I started in Germany. I was just there for it. So, I mean, I think the reason they tried to do it that way is to give the local players more platform and all that stuff. I think I don't know what their ultimate goal is. I know it affected the GFL obviously because when you look at the European League of Football, you have like 8 German teams. So that's kind of like the NFL Europe ended. So the NFL Europe was started with like in London and Scotland and Barcelona and Amsterdam and Frankfurt and Düsseldorf. And then the end it was Düsseldorf, Cologne, Berlin, France. It was only German teams in Amsterdam. So, and I think that's kind of why we kind of have our own opinion about how this league got started and how they're dealing with things. Because to me, it's always important. Okay, so are you trying to grow the game, or are you trying to grow your assets, or what's the end game of your whole situation? And for us, it's always we want to be able to do this for a long time. We want to be able to maintain this, and maybe at some point with smaller steps. Have more influence or more money to invest more. But making jumps, I was always curious about where are all these fans coming from now? It's like, how are you finding 10,000 more people all of a sudden? Because of what? Because the product on the field, I think, for the most part, is similar. They're the same players. I mean, half of I don't know how many players used to play for us that are now in the ELF. 10, 12.
Yeah. How's the new stadium? When I was there last year, it was still under construction. Are you guys fully moved into it now, or
next week?
Next week's the first.
Next week.
All right.
Next week, and from what I heard, we're sold out, so everybody's happy. And I just drove by it after practice.
What kind of crowd are we talking sold out there? How many people?
That stadium is going to be 10,000 and 200, 300, 400, something like that. Okay. But so in the big stadium, we actually had 10,000 this year. I think last year also. So we that's when we're on the soccer stadium of the local soccer team. We usually end up about high 9,000, 8, 9,000. We cracked the 10,000 this year and last year. But that's only one side of the stadium. And now with this stadium, we have 10,000 people, but it's full. So it's going to be a completely different experience. And then we're back. I mean, last time we played in that stadium was 2020, the Corona year. We had one game there. And then they started rebuilding it. And first they said it's going to be a year. So 3 years later, we played all of the games on our practice field. We actually have a new turf now on our practice field.
Good.
All while they were rebuilding the stadium. So we are so happy to be back, and we can't wait. And I think the excitement is real.
Good. That's awesome. So we're 8-1, and we've got 3 games left in the regular season, and we're making one more win locks us into the second seed. Is the first seed obviously must be still up for grabs as well. If you guys
on paper,
the first seed is who is your one loss, right?
Yeah. It's so Potsdam. They are right now. They are the standard. They have pretty much one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was a starter for Boise. His name's Jalen Henderson, and he was actually the Hula Bowl MVP, I think, a couple of years back. So he's been there for 2 years now, and they are loaded. I'm telling you, it's always fun. They're beating guys left and right. I mean, I think they had a game like 96-14 or 90, something like that. So yeah, they are the standard right now. And theoretically, if they would lose 2 games and we would win all games, we could be in first place. But this is not happening. They're gonna run the table, when we do everything right, then we can see them again in the final game. But I mean, right now we got to just focus on the next game. And the next game is going to be in Berlin. It's going to be a tough test anyway. And they always play tough. Doesn't matter what their record is. So I think we had a good practice tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. And then take it one day at a time. That's all we can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't overlook teams.
No,
it's going to get you killed.
Absolutely.
It's going to get you killed. And I think it's always that might be like this coach speak, but I think it's really important that in times like this, when you start, kind of feel you have there is something going, right? We kind of feel, okay, we could actually be in the game at some point in the final. I always tend to or try to not make it about the outcome. So right now, I told the guys on the defensive side of the ball after the summer break, I was like, all right, we're going to take one. So we're never going to look more into the future than one. So it's one practice or one game. Because I think it's always when you have that big goal always in the back of your mind, you're setting yourself up for failure, because it doesn't matter how good you play if that outcome is not the final that you desired, it's going to be a disappointment. And to me, I think if we only start looking at what's going to happen in the end and not at what we're doing right now, we're doing ourselves a disservice, because we're not going to get better. And I enjoy this, when I see we had a great practice tonight, and I saw from my nickel, I think it was the first time I saw a really, really great backpedal weave in the cover too, and I was kind of looking at him like, wow, that took 4 months, but finally we got it. Just like little stuff like that, just is really exciting to me when I see players that do stuff that I know should be done like that. And I was never able to do it. I was always everything I did was with my mind. Basically, I was never the fastest, the strongest, and all that. But I was really studying hard. And then I'm looking at some of the players. I'm thinking like, if I had your athletic ability, damn, I would have been good. So I'm always excited when I see this, and I'm trying to really just stay in that moment right now, and motto this week: be where your feet are, and um, stay with this, and then in the end, when it works out, all good, and if not, then we'll reassess. But
Yep.
it can't only be about the whole
No,
thing.
it's why I always find it funny when people are mad that coaches give that answer, but it's the right answer, right? Like you can't be looking at the end because you lose focus in the middle. You're not going to make it to the end anyway, because you're going to be focused at this end product. The team you're playing is focused on you.
Right.
You know, so it's I always find it funny because people are like, oh, it's coach speak and it's cliche and all of this, and it's like, well, it's a cliche for a reason.
And,
right?
and it's important, especially when you're having success, not to, it's kind of human nature a little bit to maybe relax, think you've arrived. And so that's one of the challenges in coaching, is to always keep that team centered, keep them in the present and focused on the next thing, the immediate, the next game, the next practice, the next play. That's definitely it is kind of coach speak, but it is very, very true. And I think you're doing it the right way, Martin.
Well, it's funny because your point right there is it's interesting in the way of how a lot of people wash out of the NFL because they get drafted and they think that I made it, right?
Yeah.
And their work ethic starts to drop. And when you get drafted, that's step one.
Yeah.
Like that's getting your foot in the door. Now the work starts.
Yeah,
And
making and staying are two different things.
No doubt.
There's a lot of people that make it to the NFL. There's not many people, there's a lot less that stay. When you look at the average career is less than 3 years. That's not a long time.
Yeah, most people don't make it out of their rookie deal.
Right.
Still making some money in this rookie deal. I think with the whole making and staying, I think that's a good point. Where I think we in Dresden are separating ourselves from other programs. Like I said, Jörg, our GM, 30-some years. Robert, our OC, 30-some years. Thomas, 28 years. So we have guys on our staff that run the show who've been there for a long time. And I think that's the biggest issue because we had this discussion the other day about how can you grow the game and how can you make other teams, develop. When you look at the teams that have success, the number one common trait is consistency in GM or coaching departments. And like you say, the players that maybe kind of fade out because, I already made it, so I'm kind of not putting in the work. I see a lot of this when it comes to coaching or developing teams where it's, all right, so I'm a coach now. I'm going to do all this. Oh, it doesn't work. So I'm going to stop. So there's the consistency of doing it over the boring so coaching, if you don't like it, is super boring. I think it's like, okay, so we have a 7-game stretch now. So every Monday I watch the same plays, or not the same plays, but I watch the tape with the same intentions and the same notes and the same everything. And then the defensive players get their game plan on Tuesday with the same structure. Okay, this is what we need to do. This is this, this is this. And then Wednesday, Thursday are 2 practices. We're working on possession and 10. We're working on red zone. And everybody knows, okay, so on Thursday we have 6 plays of third down, 6 plays of red zone, top plays. So everything is always the same. And then we might run the same call again and again and again and again. And then that is, to me, exciting. It's like I can see the development. But I think sometimes when you're not there with all your heart when it comes to that, coaching can get really, really boring. And it's like so tedious. It's always the same. And then, of course, the times when your players don't do it and don't do it over and over again, and you're thinking, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I think consistency and just everybody's always talking about the grind. I'm thinking, no, the grind is not being in the park every other day and then posting a nice little video. I think the grind is all that stuff that nobody ever sees and nobody ever talks about because it's so boring. But we love it. I would not change it.
I think the grind is really when you have a spot that you're working, and for whatever reason, it's not getting a lot better, right?
Yes.
I think that's where you're just like, man, this is tedious. Like, what? Why is this? And usually it's something that springs it free later. It's that whole, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Sometimes people are working too hard, too fast in a spot, and so they find themselves out of position, right? Yeah. It like for me, I was a corner. I struggled at safety because I was so used to locking up on somebody that the patience of being a safety sometimes escaped my abilities. Because I wanted to be somebody, right? So I'm just like, but I got to stay back because you're the deep guy. And so, I mean, it's sometimes it's just simple concepts like that. It's like, hey, a little more patience, which seems like you don't want to do it when you're on the field, will put you in the position to make the play you're supposed to make.
Have you figured out how to stay deep as a safety? Then you can come to our safeties and explain this to them.
Well, so I could probably teach it. I definitely couldn't play it anymore.
So here's my I have my 2 number 1 coaching points that I always have to say are: get in the post. I don't know why this is so hard. They kind of like they're so married to the hash when we have like a 3 or 1 coverage, and it's kind of like, looking, the post is where the post is. What are you doing? But I was seeing this, and then it's like, yes, but there will be a post route and it will be a touchdown. But I said, okay. And then the other thing is always, don't get you outside for the field. I heard that so many times in my life. Our head coach, Gary Spiebler, he was actually, I think, Texas somewhere. He's kind of a big deal in GFL, kind of famous here because he coached for Braunschweig and won a couple of titles. And his number 1 coaching point was always, don't get you outside for the field. Don't get you outside for the field. And remember the first time I said this to one of my players, and it kind of went like, oh. That's what he meant. So I mean, and that's what I mean. I mean, every year I can chart how many times I say this. Don't get your outside for the field. Don't get your outside for the field. Get in the post. Get whatever. And it's always the same. And the fact that this boring stuff does not get boring to me, but I enjoy it. It just tells me, okay, I'm definitely gonna stay longer with this whole thing.
Good.
It's just too much fun.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. When you're having fun, it's not work. I always felt like, one of the things we always preached was you commit yourself to a process, right? You have to be process driven. So, like you said, this is what Monday looks like. This is what Tuesday looks like. And when it's consistent, especially over time, the players, they learn that they're expecting certain things. They kind of understand what's going to be, what the workload is going to be, what they're, what they have to learn on that particular day for that opponent. And then you move on to the next day and you build towards game day, and then you go out and play the best that you can. And then the day after you reset and you do it all over again. And so it's definitely a process, and, it does me great joy. It gives me great joy to hear you talk about that, Martin.
Thank you. I think it's the good thing about this whole football and having a game every weekend is you get to see the result of your work every week. So you can always assess, okay, where are we doing right? When I work in my real job, which I do, they don't like. I'm a teacher, high school English and history, and you don't always see the process that you want to see there. Mm-hmm. And you don't have a game at the weekend. You have a test, but they're not going to study for the test. They're 15, so what do you expect? They don't want to be there. But that's the same thing. You keep repeating and coaching. All my life is basically telling other people what to do. In the morning, I tell my students what to do. In the evening, I tell my players what to do. And then on a holiday, I'm just letting everything go, and I say, okay. So my girlfriend says, okay. So the next 2 weeks, I make no decisions.
Yeah.
So, that always gets me in a fight because it's like, oh, we gotta do this together. I'm like, no. You say what we do, and we do this every day. I'm done making decisions. But it is what it is.
So what you say you're a teacher there? What's your school year like there? Because I mean that seems like it's different all over the planet. Like everybody's school year has like weird different elements to it. So,
I mean, it's funny enough. So it's a little different in Germany than in the States. We kind of separate the children after the fourth grade. So we have like an A-level education, which aims to get them ready for college, and then we have something called like Oberschule, which is like main school, and it kind of prepares them more for apprenticeship and like work jobs. I think it was kind of like RG, like in Ohio we had RG drag, so we had the regular high school, and then the junior senior years they could go like it was called RG drag, and there was more already working with cars and mechanics and all that stuff.
Okay,
so
vocational.
Yep.
Yeah, vocational. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of vocational. Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
cool, actually. That's a good idea for people kind of have an idea that maybe they don't want to go on to normal college or I could see how that could be kind of a good way to go.
Of course, yes, but I mean they're 10 years old when they make the decision, so it's kind of like when I was 18, I didn't know what to do. When I was 21, I didn't know. I kind of like I worked, but I mean I changed professions when I was 25, so.
So have you been able to use your position as a teacher to recruit any young players to the U15 team or anything?
Nah.
No.
So especially after Corona, we're not going to go start the whole debate about what's wrong with the young people today, because there was certainly a lot wrong with us as well. But one thing that I can say, and it's also what my colleagues who've been teaching longer than I have, it is a lot more difficult to start a fire in these younger kids now. They lack excitement and curiosity that spans over a longer time than 7 to 10 seconds. And just giving you examples, when we teach English here, we always kind of start with like a warm up, because it's a weird situation, as you know, like you have a bunch of German kids and I'm German, and now we have to talk English to each other for 45 minutes. And they're like, you can just tell me in German. I was like, yes, I can, but you got to learn English. So that's the whole thing. So we kind of got to get a groove into this. And then you always kind of ask questions about the personal life. So last song that you heard that you liked, or last movie or whatnot. And then it kind of gives you, oh, yeah, there was this. And what's the name? Well, I don't know. Maybe you don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know their name. So it's focus. You either have the super highly focused people who do everything for their profession or for their dream, but you also have a lot of kids where you say, I mean, we also kind of let a lot of things go, but I always thought we kind of knew when to turn the corner and when to kind of flip the switch and say, okay, so this is important. So in terms of recruiting, unfortunately, no. We do have a couple of fans at my school, some students that kind of see me at the game day then, and then their mom or their dad, oh, coach, and then like, yes, I see you. See you for parent-teacher meeting. Awesome.
Yeah. Make sure you do your homework.
Yeah. So why are you here? You have a presentation due. You should be at home. No, I think coaching and teaching always kind of gets back and forth. So there's some things from teaching that I bring into coaching, because in the end, if they're 15 or 25,
It's
there's a lot of similarities.
right. Well, that's one of the things in my introduction that I could tell, the first time I sat in on the very first meeting that I sat in and watched you, I'm like, this guy's, he's a good teacher, and I didn't know you were a teacher, but it did not, it made sense. Coaching is largely a teaching profession. You don't just teach in the classroom, you teach on the field, but it's not what we know, it's what we can get your players to learn and what they can execute. And if you're a great teacher, and Martin, you're a great teacher, I think you have a chance to be a great coach.
Appreciate it. I think the hardest part is what I'm learning right now. That they're all saying that KISS principle.
Yes.
Keep it simple and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This is the hardest thing to me because I always wanted people to see, hey, look what I know.
Right.
Check out this. Check out what we can do here. And then I just had this conversation with one of the ends, and we kind of talked about different how we got this coaching styles and whatnot. And now I said, so to me, at one point I realized if I can't give you an answer to a question like this in a game plan, how am I going to expect from you? Third quarter, play 52. You're
Right.
gassed. You probably have a little bit of a headache, but of course not, right?
Yeah.
And now I expect you, wait, hold on. That tailback is but a yard further outside and a yard up. That's when they run this specific play. So we're going to check this whole different coverage. I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen. So let's really keep it simple. Okay, let's repeat. I think Coach Greg said this year he wants the first week. He wants one coverage basically. What's our default? What's our all right? Everything sucks.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? So and that coverage we ran a lot.
Yeah.
They trust us so much. So and I also have great players this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I told them too.
Great players help make you a great coach. I know that much for sure.
Amen. I mean, I think it's symbiosis. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yep.
You can't make a great player out of everybody.
Right.
There's limitations to some things, and I think when you understand that and don't expect certain players to do certain things, then everything is great.
That's a great point, because that's critical. Is asking players to do something that they physically or mentally are incapable of doing is bad coaching. And it goes back to, it doesn't matter what it matters how much they can teach it. Now, I think having one defense or one coverage that they know, that you've repped thousands and thousands of times, imagine by now they understand all the adjustments. They've seen, every route pattern, or, they start to understand the bigger picture. And I think that's the biggest challenge when you're dealing with young players or inexperienced players, is they might understand their job and their role, but they don't fully understand how they fit in the big picture. And that's, for a player to be able to go to the next level, he's got to be, and I'm not saying next level NFL, I'm saying just to go from level A to level B as a player, I have to get past I call it get out of the basement, and I have to get up to the balcony, right? If I'm in the basement, I just know my job, and I only see what comes right in front of that window. But when I have a bigger picture and I'm on the balcony, I can see everything, and that's what enables you to adjust. You understand the big picture. So
well, and it's always great as a player when you drop into that base coverage that you've ran a million times, because you get to play the freest, you get to play the entire game.
Right.
Because every wrinkle that particular defense has to offer, and your place in it, and you have
and you know how your teammates are going to react.
That's exactly it. So yeah, I mean, it's sometimes adding all of the little elements actually makes your defense worse, even though against the play that you're drawing it up against, it should be better. You just don't run enough reps of it. And so ultimately you end up with guys that are out of position, even though the defense was sound.
Yeah. I mean, I got chewed out by Coach Paul last year. There was one game. He told me before the game, okay, so keep this simple. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then the combinations of stunts and coverages we ran kind of added up. And we kind of, like, we were always like a step too late. And there was the one time Coach Paul really, I was sitting there, I was like, oh yeah, I understand. Yeah, I think the meeting kind of ended with fix that or I'll be calling, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. It was one coverage, one cloud too many. Like, okay, we're gonna cloud this receiver, and then we're gonna bring this pressure, and then we're gonna man here, and then that was kind of like,
and the only cloud was up here.
Oh, no, I was kind of looking at this. Why is this not working? And so I mean, what helps us in terms of keeping everything simple is just the amount of reps. I mean, we have 2 practices a week, so I got about 80 to 85 defensive reps. So that's, and then you got to see, okay, so we have a starting 11 plus, let's say 6, 7. Right, so 16, 17 players who can be in a rotation where you don't get a heart attack when you look at the field. And so you got to kind of divide up these reps, but you also want to have your starters see certain plays, but you also want to have your backups in for some of the plays. So that's always the wildest gymnastics when you're kind of looking at, okay, so I'm only going to call this on cover in first down. All right, so I'm only going to call this in this situation. So I'm only going to rep this now. And when this situation comes, I'm only going to call this because it's the only thing we've done. That's what our offense coordinator always said. He will never call stuff that we did not practice. Mm-hmm. So and to me, like in the beginning, I was always like, well, you got to adjust, and you can kind of make adjustments where it's like, okay, so now they take this away, so let's just run this way. And the longer I'm with him and the more I understand his thought process, I'm like, okay, no, you cannot expect. Like, you can't even say, okay, you go to that position, you play the same stuff on the other position. It's too much. It's like, not do that. And it's a learning curve. And I always say I feel fairly confident in what I'm doing. But I know, like, in 5 years, I'll be looking back and then I was thinking, oh, wow, you had no idea. So I'm well aware that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. But I'm in this nice stage right now where I don't know what I don't know, and I know enough to think I know. So it's kind of fun. And then in a couple of years, I'll be thinking, oh God, what did you do? Like, but I think that's just the process.
That is awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you, Martin.
That does get us to the top of the hour here. Let people know how they can see you, because I mean, obviously we have people that watch all over the place. But do you guys stream your games or?
Oh, absolutely. You can stream our games. It's called Sport Deutschland TV. If you do, yes, can you please spell this? No, I would tell my students, I would do like, can you spell this, please? And then they had to spell this, and then they would mess up 1 or 2 letters, and that would be a whole 5 minutes of a lesson. If you just Google Livestream GFL. So Livestream GFL, and then there's a first page that gets you there. It's a German commentator, so either German or you just turn it off. Usually it's about like €4 or €6 if you want to just stream one game, and then if you want to have like the rest of the season pass, I don't fully know exactly. And then if you want to check out some social media on that, of course, Dresden Monarchs, you can find them on Instagram. And then all the coaches and players, they're linked up there. We have a bunch of pictures. Our social media team with Robbie does a fantastic job of, just making it look like we are we are just it. And they kind of look at us like, wow, we are pretty cool. And he makes it look awesome. And so that's, Dresden Monarchs, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff you can find on the internet as well. And then, of course, just that's where you get all the information. And that's also in English. So
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, awesome. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps bring our stuff to you. If you're watching on Roku TV, be sure to stay tuned for the next hour. Other than that, see y'all next week.
Thanks, Martin.
thank you.